Welcome to episode 2 of Balanced, of course, with the very special Dr. Paulette Clark. And we decided that we would like to do something a little bit interesting today because there's so much going on so fast that we can sit here and talk for 10 hours and not even cover most of it. It's that much stuff going on. So I wanted to start, and I'm going to paraphrase, but I want to paraphrase some quotes that I've heard. Media, RNC, and I want to throw them at you. And I'd like you to give me your response as to whether is this information or is this manipulation.
Okay.
And then secondly, I want you to say, is it believable or is this just garbage?
Okay.
Okay. One of the politicians from RNC, and I'll paraphrase here, he said, well, when we get in office, what we're going to do is listen to the American people and do what they want.
Mm-hmm.
How do you take that? Information or manipulation?
It's manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that because you're trying to pull at my heartstrings, and that's obvious.
Right. I
You
agree.
didn't even ask me what I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me what I want. It's not information because we don't have anything to go on.
Mm-hmm.
Am I close?
You're right if you agree with me. No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
The second part. Do you even find that statement believable?
Do I find that statement believable? Absolutely not.
Agree also. That statement was made by J.D. Vance. And I listened to that. And the words that came to my mind was something that I'd heard on Fox News. They were referring to Kamala Harris at the time. It was way back. But the phrase they used was word salad. And I listened to that and I thought, that's word salad. He's saying a lot of things without saying anything at all.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
The next thing I noticed.
Okay, got it.
The next thing I noticed, and he went on from there to say, okay, yes, we're listening to the people. And then he started naming states.
Okay.
And he named Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania. So you just started naming swing states that you're trying to get votes from and ignored every other state in the country because they're reliably red or they're reliably blue, so we don't have to worry about them. You're not really inspiring me
to
believe in you. You're not telling me anything.
Right.
How about this one? If the other side wins, that may be the last election that we ever have because our country will be over. Information, manipulation.
That's absolute manipulation. Listen to that. That's fear mongering.
Yes, it is. I agree.
That's basically saying to me as an American citizen, if you don't vote for us, then we're going to have a temper tantrum and we're going to tear this sucker apart. That's what that sounds like to me. And I've heard that threat many times. Just as recently as maybe this morning, I saw it, even though I know it happened, I think yesterday or over the weekend. Governor of Ohio said something a little,
along those lines. Now, who do you think said that I was referring to? Because this is interesting. This one was very interesting to me.
What's the guy's name that's over Project 2025, the Heritage Foundation? He said it as well.
Yeah, and he probably did, but that's not who I was referring to.
Who's that?
I was referring to multiples. Donald Trump.
Oh my, not surprised.
No, if you were surprised, I would be surprised that you're surprised.
Okay.
But I've also heard it from the Democrats. If Donald Trump gets in, there's going to be a coup and they'll take over and run it as, a dictatorship.
Right. Right.
Which is also fear mongering.
It is.
It's like you're not convincing me of anything by telling me how bad the other side is.
Yeah, that's true. So what do we do then, David, when we are given this non-fact or a statement to evoke or invoke emotion? Because number one, that now you're making me think, and I don't know how I feel about that. So if they think that we are that stupid, they're right. Because it doesn't sound like to me, according to what you're saying, and just some of the statements that you've mentioned, that many people are really paying attention to, number one, the issues at hand that we're all facing. And what is your strategy? I haven't heard anybody really talk about a strategy yet.
Right. I haven't yet either.
Okay.
Thought maybe you saw something I didn't.
No.
But
No, I haven't.
I'd like to mention a third one, and it was something that you posted.
Okay.
All right. You mentioned the Heritage Foundation.
Yes.
Okay. You posted a video of what happened was the gentleman at the Heritage Foundation made basically the statement of, we're going to make these changes, and it will stay bloodless if the left allows it. Now, do you consider that statement information or manipulation?
Manipulation.
Really?
I do. That was a threat. That was manipulative, and he meant to make it. And he's and I say that because I've got a little bit of context behind it. Only for me, because I've read Project 2025.
Right.
And it is like walking back in time. It's almost as if, they're saying, okay, this is Jim Crow 2024 style, right? This is
right.
And it concerned me. And then when he made the statement, it's kind of like, well, if you don't vote him in, let me back up. Let me reel this in again so I'm clear. One of the things, if you have read it, and this is for listeners and subscribers and viewers, if you've read Project 2025, there is a preface that talks about their relationship and how long they have had people in position in politics and in major corporations and so forth who have worked directly with President Ronald Reagan. And they named off specific things that they worked with him to get done. And I thought, I remember that. Oh, I remember that. And I believe I might have been in college, or I was just coming out of college. Right. And I recall some of those initiatives. And it kind of concerned me because I thought, oh, they've been around. This isn't new.
No, it's just been put in writing for everybody to read.
For everyone to see. And so when I heard him say it, it's almost as if you all don't let us continue to do what we've been doing, this is what's going to happen. That's how I took that.
Okay. And I actually partially disagree with you on that.
Okay. Let's hear it.
And just on information manipulation. I'll tell you why. I think it was information. Partial manipulation, but I think it was also partial information. Information doesn't have to be good. It can be bad information.
Okay.
But he was absolutely saying what he wanted his constituents, whatever, to do.
Right.
So to me, it was kind of like, we're going to make a threat, so y'all better prepare for some sort of internal civil war. That's information. That's bad information, but it's information.
Okay.
And it's manipulation too. It's both. Because wouldn't you rather know that someone was going to try to radically change things than being sneaky about it?
Well, yeah, they have been sneaky. And we've been watching them be sneaky all these years.
Oh yeah. And then in that same video clip, and I'm gonna ask you the next stage.
Okay.
All right. We watched that, and then we watched Joy Reid respond to it. And she went from far out right wing nut job conservatism, way too far that doesn't make sense, to this is a race thing. They're going after. And I looked at that, and I want to throw that at you. Is that information or manipulation?
On this one, I'm going to say it's both. It was manipulation, number one. And I don't think Joy realized that that's how it came off, as being manipulative. But she's also a journalist, right? So that's what she does. Right. Her job is to convince, either left or right or wrong. Her job is to convince you of what she or whatever establishment she works with believes in. Right. And so I think some of it was information, because she quoted and provided information about
absolutely
the situation and the actual speech that was given. But then also it was, if y'all don't want to go back in time, if you don't want to do this, if you don't want to do that, then this is what you can expect. So it almost sounded as if it was a threat. Like, if you're not going to do this, then here's what's going to happen. And so I listened to it, and I actually posted it as well. Let me be clear. This is a disclaimer for Paulette. Whenever I post things and I put my face next to it or whatever, number one is to catch your attention. Number two is to help you to think. It doesn't mean that I agree or disagree. A lot of times it's because I want people to see the things that they're missing as they're mindlessly scrolling through to catch the next dance. And it's important for us not to miss those. So I'm sorry. Let me regress and go back. So I think it was both of them. I think it was both. It was both informative and it was manipulative, because she went on. Let me say what she did. Then she went on, I think the next day, and she said, "Hey, join me live, and I'm going to be sharing with you Project 2025." Well, I had just done that. So people had already been doing it. I need us to be careful when we are offering up our ears and our eyes to people who are in the media limelight the way that they are, because when they're going live, there are advertising dollars behind them. And the more eyeballs that they get on certain things, see, this is where we got to be careful, where that media comes in that you talk about, which one is manipulative. I think it was a precursor to what she wanted people to do, honestly. And that was to come back and listen in.
Come back and listen. Sure.
Right. Because when you listen or when you watch, this is I'm going to get something on the back end. So yeah, that's my take.
And I agree with it. I think it was both. I looked at it and went, you didn't have to make it about race, and maybe that was not intentional. Maybe it was. I don't know. But while I say that I disagree with that little piece of it, of switching it to race, I would also openly say that I 100% support her right to say it.
Right. I got you.
Just because I don't agree with you doesn't mean you don't have the right to say it, and vice versa. We should be able to say it. We should be able to have these conversations.
Absolutely.
And look at both sides and say, okay, this makes sense, and this has lost its mind.
Right. Exactly.
The other thing that I've noticed, and I've kind of watched it, and I want to get your take on it.
Okay.
I think it's hardest for us as individuals to call out the same group that we identify with. So, for example, let's consider it from far left, way far left, to far right. Okay. If you are center left, you can call out the far left pretty well, and you can call out the far right, or wherever you are on that spectrum. The hardest place to call out manipulation is from wherever you align with. If you align, let's say that you align slightly center right, just hypothetically, then you're going to have the hardest time calling out politicians who are slightly centered right, because that's where you align yourself. And that's the hardest to see.
Okay.
Because you automatically, I'm in this group. I kind of think the way they do. That's the hardest one to see because we're jaded. Okay. And so, do you could call out Project 2025 pretty easy. We could do that. But if it's something that's right there, you know, if you are a absolute Trump supporter, everything he says is golden.
Mm-hmm.
You are way far manipulated. And you can say the same thing about Joe Biden.
Mm-hmm.
If you are so in tune to that person that you don't think they ever make a mistake and everything they do is right, you've been manipulated.
Yeah.
All human.
Okay. I would agree with that. I think that we have to learn how to look at all of the sides, right? That was one of the things, to your point, that I made a decision to do this go round. I wasn't and am not. I think this goes for a lot of us though. I don't think any one of us is saying I'm 100% this or I'm 100% that, because I am not. Right. I did very well say to myself, okay, look at what Donald Trump is talking about. Look at what his campaign is talking about. And I got so far and I started reading about Project 2025 months ago, back in January. Then I started reading about Agenda 47 and shared it with some friends. And we talked about it amongst ourselves. And it's it's slightly correlated to Project 2025. And so I thought, there's not so much something awry here, but I'm not comfortable with some of the words that are used in either one of the documents. And I understand that he's not sitting there and writing that himself, but you cannot tell me that he is not responsible for approving those things that may come through his desk once it gets through maybe an admin or someone else who's doing the perusing for him. Where I'm concerned with the Trump administration, or rather the GOP overall, is their stance on reproductive rights.
I'm so glad you brought that up.
I am concerned that more and more people are going to, and we're talking about women, more and more women are going to lose more than just the right to do what they want with the bodies that they walk around in. They will lose their lives, because let me tell you what I do know. When I was a young girl, in my community, we didn't go to clinics. We went to Big Mama and them down the street because they knew what to do. Right. But it didn't always end healthy.
No, of course not.
Sometimes, someone ended up losing their life, or someone would never come out the same, or ended up not being able to bear children in the future, right? So what Roe v. Wade allowed women to do was to do it in a healthy manner and get the medical professional support that they needed when they made a decision like that. What we have done, we have opened up the gateway for people, many more people, to go back to doing it the way that it's been done for centuries. This is not new. It's not. But it's an unfortunate thing. That was number one. The other thing that was a problem for me, and then I'm going to go over to the Kamala side, and I apologize, but I got to get this out.
No. I actually want to respond to that one. So,
okay. So when I looked at it, that was one. Then the other one was this woke ship thing. So now they've come up with their own word. They don't even know what woke means. So so they put it in their own context and made it into a word that it is not. And now they're calling it anti-woke ship. That was an issue. The other one that really I'm going to stop now, but burned me up was when I read in the document about families should be the husband, the wife, and the XYZ, blah. So wait a minute, what are we talking about? Are we talking about Junior Ward Cleaver type stuff? Because what I'm not understanding is, how is it that you could believe what a television studio put out and not really look at the true stories of what were happening when men and women were married? Women had to get married because they didn't have any rights. I can remember when my mother got her very first bank account. It was in the 70s. And her husband took her. Let's talk about that. So she didn't have the monetary means to do what she wanted to do when she wanted to do it or how she wanted to do it. She had to wait on her husband. And so that meant, unfortunately, in many instances, he could kind of do what he wanted to do and he did. So she didn't have any control. So you want us to go back to that? First of all, it's not going to happen. That's number one. You talk about a civil war. Talk about the one you'll have in your household if something like that were to happen. Right? Okay, I'm done. I'm done with that side. Okay, go ahead. I'm so sorry.
All right, and I really wanted to respond to that. I actually had this conversation in my head with you yesterday.
Okay.
Because I think that however you want to term it, abortion, women's reproductive rights, etc., that's one of the tools that is used by our government to divide on purpose.
Right.
And I'm not making a judgment on this side, that side, but that's the way it looks. I watched a clip on CNN and they were talking about J.D. Vance. And they played just, a half a sentence of something he said. And it was basically like he would like to see abortion outlawed completely.
Yep.
What they didn't do, and it caused me to actually go back and research and find out what the rest of his sentence was.
Okay.
And to me, they didn't even play the most important part of that sentence. Because what he said was, and I know a lot of people who firmly in their minds believe that life starts with conception and therefore you're murdering a child, and that's their belief. Okay, fine. So that part didn't surprise me. If they said, well, I don't like that being done at all because that's killing a baby. Okay, I understand. That's your belief. Great. Okay. Whether anyone agrees or not, you have that right to believe the way that you choose to believe. The rest of his sentence, however, was, and I'm not going to quote this directly, but it was basically, but I recognize that it is a state issue now. But I still think the federal government should have a say in it. And CNN didn't play the rest of that sentence, and I think they should have, and here's why. You just had a Supreme Court decision that said it's not the federal government, it's the state governments. And now you're trying to turn it around and make it a federal government thing again, except the other way around. They're using it as a political tool, and here's how. The Dobbs decision, which overturned Roe v. Wade, did not stop or prevent any abortions from happening, nor did it add more abortions to be had.
Right.
All it said was, and I actually agreed with that specific piece of it, was constitutionally, if the Constitution is not allocated to the federal government, then it is a state issue.
Okay.
And I agree with that because that's not in our Constitution at all.
Okay.
The other side of it, and say what you were referring to back in the 70s, and even back, let's go back 1950 and earlier, you didn't have the ability to, you couldn't just up and drive 3 states away. Not then. Now, most of us could get from state to state fairly easy.
Right.
Or have someone who can.
Right.
So the only thing the Dobbs decision did was it moved the location. Therefore, states that allow abortions actually bring in more revenue, and states that don't lost revenue. That's all it did. But Donald Trump and the GOP claimed victory for it. We got the Dobbs decision, we overturned Roe v. Wade. Yeah, but you're manipulating because it didn't stop any abortions.
No.
Not a single abortion did it stop. So you're taking a victory lap for it. Now, on the other side, the Democrat side, they say they're taking away women's rights. No, they put it to the states. It didn't prevent any abortions. And so both sides are using it as a heart tool to tug at your heartstrings. To say, other side bad out to get you. When in reality, that decision It moved to an abortion clinic across the state line and
Wow.
didn't do anything else. And yet you're claiming victory to rile up your supporters, and you're claiming victimhood to rile up your supporters. But in reality, that decision didn't do anything at all.
Well, what it did do, unfortunately, was it made it more difficult for those people who could not afford to cross those state lines to get there.
That is true. I'll grant you that point. I will absolutely grant you that point. It's just in this day and age, I'd be hard pressed to find somebody who, if they couldn't themselves, wouldn't have a friend that could take them.
Right. But there have been people that who couldn't get
there.
There
Are exceptions to every rule. We can't.
Mm-hmm.
We certainly can't, and we talked about it in the last episode. You can't say an entire group.
Right. And that's the hard part. Is there's all these tiny little cracks in these laws, and it's impacting people's lives. We've had doctors be fined for giving a 10-year-old SA victim her life back after performing the procedure, the DNC. That's what I'm going to call it, because that's what it is, a dissection curative. For giving this 10-year-old child her life back after being SA'd by a family member. And this doctor was fined, a massive fine. And I believe she's on probation as well. And so I'm disgusted, first of all, that somewhere in between there, J.D. Vance believes that two wrongs don't make a right. I'm sorry. What? Oh, see, I had a uterus at one time in my life, right? She's asleep now, right? But at one point she was completely alive, and she has birthed 4 healthy children. But
it's a beautiful thing. I mean, women will always be superior to men because of that.
Right.
You can bring life.
No, you're not. But here's where I am going to I'm going to stand firm. If I decided that I did not want to go through with the pregnancy in my younger days, then I should have reserved the right not to do so. Either because I was too young, or because I didn't have the monetary resources. Because see, here's the issue that I'm having when we're talking about reproductive rights. And I'm trying to use the correct, the PC terms, as you can tell.
The PC term, depending on which side you are. Yes.
So when we're talking about reproductive rights, I have, as a woman with a uterus that has gone to sleep, I am in full-blown menopause, okay? But my point is that at one point I was in my reproductive years, and there was a time where I had to make decisions. Well, that decision is now 34, right? And she's a mom, and she's married, and she's done all the things. Well, let me tell you how hard it was for me as a young single mom, right? And even though I had help, her dad was a big help. But then, life continued to happen, and it becomes difficult, because what we have found is, because women are much more independent and we have learned how to generate our own revenue, the hard part is we still don't make what men make doing the same jobs. So we're making less and we're living on less. And it's even worse when you're a person of color and female. So all of those factors play a part in some of the decisions that people make when it comes to their reproductive rights and their reproductive health, and what they may or may not decide to do when it comes to keeping a pregnancy to term. So, and I think it is unfair for a man or any court or any jurisdiction, being on the federal or the state level, to talk about something that's on the inside of me that I'm walking around with. I don't understand how that's anybody else's business.
I agree with you, but disagree with you on this one point.
Okay.
If I'm the father, I want to say so. I want to be there. I have children. I want to be there. I want to be the father. We should discuss this as a couple. If you're leaning towards aborting a child, we should discuss this, because it's also my child, and we should make a decision together.
Okay.
I'm not talking about a one night stand and somebody's never there. I'm talking about you're married, and don't look at me and tell me that I don't get an opinion on this when this is, my child too. So it should be a discussion together.
Right. Okay.
No matter what the outcome, it should at least be respectful and open enough to discuss this back and forth.
But the problem is everybody's not Dave Lowery.
The other issue that I have on abortion, and it's actually on the financial side of it.
Yeah.
I don't think that the state or the government should be paying for it. And using tax dollars. And here's why. It's going to sound crass. But in my view, if I'm not the one that had the pleasure of the first part, why am I financially responsible for the second part?
Okay.
And by the way, I'm not saying that it should be solely on the woman. It should absolutely be on the person on the other side, the man on the other side. He should be responsible. He's the one that did it, and therefore he should be financially responsible.
Yep. But let's dig a little bit further.
I think that should be more of a, if I was the one making the laws, I would be pushing for that. It's like, no, let's make it where he is financially responsible.
Right.
He's financially, if they have their whatever, he's financially responsible if she gives birth and he's paying child support. Why isn't he financially responsible if
I agree with that. I agree with that. But now we're talking, let's also talk about and put this in. And I know we got to move on to the next topic. But,
we could spend all day on this.
Yeah, we could. We absolutely could. But listen, what about those situations where I didn't ask for this? You assaulted me. You did things
in terms of say rape.
Right.
I think he should still have to pay for it, and he should go to jail.
Period.
That should be an automatic. And that brings up an interesting point. But she needs to be telling the truth. And I'll use the example of, do you remember the Duke lacrosse scandal?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Where it turns out that she lied about the whole thing.
Yep. I remember that.
And, you're talking about ruining somebody's lives, of accusing them of rape, et cetera, et cetera. I think her punishment should be just as bad as a rapist going to jail. Because all she did was make every female who's ever had that happen called into question.
Yep.
You don't make that kind of false claim, because then you're taking away from all the women who've actually experienced that kind of trauma.
Yes. That's why women don't talk, because we're not believed anyway.
Yeah. And I think it's one of those. And, don't tell me it's that you both got drunk and something happened and you regret it in the morning. Well, that to me is not rape. You both kind of went on with the alcohol and you went, no, but you have those absolute hands down. She was assaulted. He needs to go to jail.
Yeah.
And if she made a false accusation, she needs to go to jail for the same time, because that's what she's accusing him of.
Exactly. Now, I agree 100% with you there. There's been several instances where the young women have started coming forth and saying, and there was one case, and I forget which one it was. Maybe we'll, research that after the show, but where a young lady admitted to it, and all she said was she was sorry. This young man had lost all of these years, lost an opportunity to go to the NFL behind her lie.
Yep.
Now, see, when we're talking about stuff like that, now we're getting off topic. So I'm gonna bring it back in. But we're talking about SA. We're talking about being assaulted, getting, conceiving based on that sexual assault. I should not be forced to carry that to term like some Handmaid's Tale.
Completely agree, 100%. Because that is something that was created out of a crime. Out of a horrific crime. And quite frankly, if a woman chose to keep the baby after that, I would be impressed. I'm truly heartfelt impressed, because that would be one of the hardest things. But since we're on this topic and government getting involved in our sexual things, I wanted to segue. I'd like to segue that just real quick into why are there laws in regards to sexual activity? And I'll give you, for instance, we already have laws on the book that says rape is a crime, right?
Yes. Yes.
Child molestation is a crime.
Mm-hmm.
To me, I live in a more conservative state.
Mm-hmm.
In my personal opinion, there should only be one law on sexual activity, and it should only be 2 words: consenting adults. Therefore, if you are a traditional husband and wife in your own bedroom, blah, 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 great.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? If you have 30 people having this massive orgy, as long as it's consenting adults, I don't think the government of any level should be involved in it.
Doesn't have anything to do with it. I agree with that.
Should have no say so. We already have the laws on the things that shouldn't happen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But if you're consenting adults,
Yeah.
then why shouldn't you just have that, make your own choice?
Exactly.
Why in the world would any form of government
Be
have the
involved in
right
what you do in the bedroom.
to tell me what I can do in my bedroom?
I have never understood that. I don't get it. And I think a lot of it just has a lot to do with when we're talking about people who are these conservatives and they're staunch, quote unquote, Christian conservatives, and they in your business. I mean, I don't think it matters. They're, even in this ridiculous Project 2025, they're talking about making pornography a crime punishable by prison time and so forth and XYZ. And I thought, oh my God, today.
Well, on that, you said that, and I glanced at the pornography part of that. Now, I didn't get to read it in full like you did. So, but the part that I read, and that I do agree with, don't be giving pornography to grade school students.
Oh, absolutely not.
That's unreal. Yep. And you brought up the Christian right. Okay, I'm a Christian, but it doesn't mean that I think that I should force my thoughts on you. So while we can easily agree, I've seen you dancing with your granddaughter. You don't want some teacher going, look at this, and showing, definitely not age appropriate material.
Right.
But if you're an adult, whereas even as a Christian, I may disagree with from a moral side.
Yeah.
You should be able to make your own decisions.
I agree.
If you want to preach against it in a pulpit, wonderful, fine, great. That's what churches are for. But when you want to go in and legislate what somebody does, that's insane. I'll give you one that I've had conversations with people in my state. How is it legal for a woman to sleep with 50 guys? All right, if she wants to, whatever. They don't care. But prostitution is illegal.
That makes sense.
So you're telling me that she can sleep with 50 guys, but she can't get paid for it. She can only do it for free.
You can only do it for free.
And then let me add it onto that. The other way she can make money from it is if she does it on camera and then they sell it.
That makes sense.
It makes 0 sense to me.
Yeah. I see your point.
You're telling young women, you're actually pushing young women to say, go to OnlyFans or whatever. You make a lot of money. Or just, if you're promiscuous, have fun, but you can't get paid for it.
You cannot get paid for it. But you know what? But they have made it where it is. And, so many different states have their own laws on it. We know that it's legal in the state of Nevada. And I think there's like 1 or 2 more states, but
is it really?
Yeah. So
no, it was Nevada.
The one thing that they have done, especially when you talk about OnlyFans and you have like these other private groups where you can, do specific things as long as it's on camera. It's the oldest profession in the world. It's not going anywhere.
Yes.
And
no, it's not.
The one thing that I would say, and I know I'm gonna catch flack for this, is they just need to figure out a way to tax it and move on, because
Nevada figured out a way to tax it. They're
Yeah.
regulated.
yeah,
They figured out a way to tax it. They get money from it.
yeah.
And at one point in history, this struck me as really funny.
Mhm.
One of those places, not brothels, I was looking for the word, actually lost their business for whatever reason for tax purposes, and the federal government took it over. So for a short period of time, our federal government was running a brothel.
A brothel. That is insane.
It's
Loopholes everywhere.
absolutely gambling in my state.
Mm-hmm.
There are 2 places that you can go to legally gamble.
Hot Springs, Arkansas. And where's the other one?
The other one is in West Memphis.
Really? Oh, it is. Yes.
Okay. Do you remember that there was a dog track in West Memphis?
Yes.
Okay, it was pari-mutuel betting. You bet against all the other people that were betting. Okay, they've had that. Now, high-rise hotel, huge casinos there. But the law on the books in Arkansas, if you and I sat in my home and played a poker game for money and they found out about it, they can fine us for it.
That's crazy.
You cannot go online and say play poker online gambling in Arkansas.
I didn't know that part.
The online services that offer this, they know, because they're not allowed to let you access if you're from this state. Okay, so let me get this straight. I have 2 places we can gamble.
Okay. Yes.
As long as our state government says it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So gambling is legal in this state, but only where they tell you it's legal. And
But
you
don't
have to go play their way so they get money from it.
I was getting ready to say that. So don't you think that there are local politicians and business folks who are benefiting from it being the way that it is? And of course, they're greasing some palms to keep it the way that it is. It has
That is exactly what they're doing. That is exactly what they're doing, because if you have a problem with gambling, quote unquote, morally, as a politician, so well, gambling's bad, we're not going to have that.
Mm-hmm.
But yet you do it when you make money off of it from everybody else.
I think that makes sense.
So you're basically, what you're doing is you have such an ego that you want to control me, but you're allowed to do it yourself.
It's all about the money, though.
It's like getting a license to open one of those places. You're not going to get that unless you have connections.
That's it. Exactly. And it's funny that I'm glad that you brought up Arkansas. That the only reason why Oaklawn, that's the name of the place.
That's Hot Springs. Yes, racing horses.
Yeah, it's Hot Springs, the horses, and then inside is the casino. And I understand now that there are hotels there and so forth that have been recently built up in the area. And it's still the #1 resort city as far as I am concerned, or the very first resort city in the country. And I think that it's fairly well, but it's all a part of keeping the money in specific circles. I would love to know who's making the decision for gambling to end up on the ballot every year, but somehow it keeps getting voted down. I don't understand that. And even though I no longer live in Arkansas.
We had someone come around not a few weeks ago and called my wife out and said that, yep, they're petitioning to put it back on the ballot. Because, if that's allowed, then I should be able to open a business in town. Gambling establishment if I want to.
Yep, you should.
But nope. Because there's a lot of money to be made in it, and they want their piece, and they don't want us taking away from their piece of the business.
That's too much. And I wish more people understood that. But again, I think it goes back to the premise of your show when because I've been a part of conversations when we hear about gambling, when we hear about making things legal or not. It really comes down to how the press helps to bend the ideas and the thought process of people. Because I've heard people say, and this is when I was living in Arkansas and I was voting for it, right? Because I understood the economic impact in a positive way that it would have on specific types of communities, right? I think I heard that there's one in Pine Bluff now. I'm not really sure, but
actually, I think there may be,
yeah, and it's been around a couple of years, but my point is in this is I've heard people say, well, you know that's a sin, and y'all not to do that and blow, and it's like, who told you that it's a sin? Well, you know that Jesus threw out the thieves at the church, and what in the heavens does that?
Okay, first off, well, that's funny. This is okay. If you say it's sin, if that's what you believe, don't go.
That's it.
I mean, it seems like a very simple answer to me.
Right.
The same way, if I don't want my children watching a certain TV show, I'll turn it off.
You turn it off.
My wife and I go, no, you can't watch it. End of story. I don't call up the studio and say you shouldn't be making this show.
Yep. And
I control my actions, not it is not. If you put it on and I watch it, that's not on you. That's on me.
Mm-hmm.
If I find it sinful, I shouldn't be doing it. It's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing as gambling. So what? You know, if you go to church, yes, gambling sinful, prostitution sinful, all these things are sinful.
Right.
Don't partake in them.
That's good.
If that's the way you believe.
But I think it goes back to, like I said before, about what you're talking about, where the press helps to manipulate your thought process.
Oh, absolutely.
Exactly what base in order to touch. Because we understand that the state that you're in are they still a red state? Well, if they are, they're highly, and they're seriously conservative. And so they know the right words to say. They know the exact things that should be said and how to say them, where to say them, what organizations and what churches to go to in order to get things on the ballot or get them removed, and to manipulate the way people think. So when they go to the ballots, they get the result that they want.
Right. They get the manipulation of the people, the churches. And then they're basically manipulating us to go, well, if this is sinful, we're not going to have this. Well, okay, we're going to have it at Oaklawn and West Memphis, but, you know, but nobody else, because that's morally wrong.
Yeah.
It's like, this has nothing to do with morals. This has to do with the fact that you're lining your pockets while cutting our throats.
Exactly. And we have to spin the story just right so you'll believe it and vote it down again.
Yes. And it shows this is not, you know, with balance. I don't want to just show politicians up in Washington doing this.
Right.
This all the way down to school boards.
Absolutely.
This is every bit of it. We are going to manipulate, and we've got I've heard this phrase before, but if it's right, it's right. We've got this good old boys club, and this is what we're going to do.
Yes, absolutely.
And I find that good old boys clubs don't really like me because I ask questions and go, why do you get to do something, but you say nobody else can?
Right.
You know, what gives you the power to be my moral guideline?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. And that goes back to, I wish we had more time. I really do.
We're manipulated to believe it.
Yeah.
When, if you stop and think about it, and, you know, as a Christian, well, I'm supposed to believe this, but, and perhaps I do, perhaps I don't, either way, but that's a personal moral decision.
It is.
I have no right to tell Dr. Paulette Clark what she can or cannot do with her life, in her bedroom. That's not my job. Right. I don't have that right. But we have a lot of politicians and leaders who think that they do.
Right.
When in reality, we kind of just want to be left alone.
Yes, we do.
We would like to have, sure, nobody wants their taxes going up.
Mm-hmm.
Why should you get more of my money? You're wasting it now.
Exactly.
And so leave us alone. Let us do our things, especially from a moral perspective.
Right. I agree. 100%. Man, listen. This is
You're a
so
lot of fun.
this is gonna get good. So y'all, I know that we're at the end, but you've brought up, and these are really good challenges that maybe you should or we should maybe just kind of put out there. Well, which one do you think it is? Manipulation, or is this what do you call it? What was the other one? Manipulation?
Information or manipulation?
Information or manipulation. Which one is it? Which one is it? And you decide for yourself, because I think what this has allowed me to do is kind of look at things a little bit different just in this short hour that we've got. How is it that we are reaching these ideas about Kamala Harris over Donald Trump, right? And in the past 72 hours, how she's been able to raise $84 million. And they couldn't even do that throughout the entire campaign that Biden was running. So what was that determining moment that said it's okay to support her? And what happened? Because at one moment I felt like, whenever we heard about Biden, and then it was almost as if it was like a clown show at the debate that they had. And now here you have Kamala Harris with the track record that she has, if you've done your research, and you say, okay, I'll check her out a little bit further. But I think, again, to your point, we have to be very, very careful, especially now with things being so critical and the manipulative words that are being shared in the press, and through the Heritage Foundation, and through the Trump team that's out there campaigning. We have to really, really be careful in how we are researching. We should be researching. I think that we all should, and making better decisions on what we should be doing for this country. I'm going to be honest with you. Again, I think most of us understand what this is about. This has nothing to do with Kamala Harris. I think more so than ever, this has more to do with the idea that the GOP has been playing chess a hell of a long time.
Yeah, and they win some and they lose some.
But
they're good at it, and so is the other side is too. And they both play chess. Unfortunately, we're the pawns.
We're the pawns, and that's where what you're talking about is so important, because putting her in position, that was strategic. That's a strategy.
Absolutely.
And even if it was a strategy for the Biden administration, knowing at his age that there was nothing else that could be done, it was an absolute marvelous and brilliant strategy to put her in position. But now she has to rise to the occasion.
Yes, she does.
So do we. We have to rise to the occasion and say, what are the things that are most important to us? And you and I have had this conversation before.
Oh, absolutely.
I want to make sure that my mortgage is paid. I want to make sure that when I'm ready to retire, that I'm able to do so and not have to worry about how medicine or healthcare or my bills are paid, right? I want to be able to pay a regular old cell phone bill without flipping out about where the money is coming from. Now,
yes.
And not have to worry about whether or not my gray hair means that it's time for me to go sit down because somebody decided for me that I'm too old. So
if you sit down with a pen and paper, for viewers, you sit down with a pen and paper and you write down the top 5 most important things to your life that potentially the whatever administration is coming in can affect your life. I'd be willing to bet, for all of you, anybody that's honest, the race of the person is not going to matter. That's not going to be on your top 5 most important things. You're right. It's going to be, can I pay my mortgage?
Yeah.
Do I have enough food to feed my children? That is going to be the top 5. And don't put everybody in the same bucket, but I think most of us would have those things on our list.
Oh, absolutely.
Without a doubt.
Mm-hmm.
And so which side of this, and that's why I tried to look up their websites, but no, I want to see what you actually want to implement as policy, and how do this policy affect my top 5 things to take care of my family. So if we threw away the R behind the name or the D behind the name and just said these are just 2 people with different views, but let me just match up the most important things in my life, and let me look at what your actual plan is.
Yeah.
Which of those plan best helps me?
Right.
And my family.
I agree.
And therefore, make your decision accordingly. To me, it's that simple. Unfortunately, it takes a lot of work because you actually have to go try to find what exactly do you want to do. I shouldn't have to hunt for that.
Right.
When I click on your website, I shouldn't be sent directly to, hey, send money.
Right.
No. I want to see what you want to do, because I don't even know if I support you until I find out exactly what you want to do.
Right. I got you.
All right. You're right. We've got to wrap this up. And we have things we didn't even get to today, but this has been so much fun.
Yes.
And I love the fact that we come at things from different angles.
Yeah.
It's different viewpoints, which makes them both right, because it's our own lives. It's our own, what we live and what we see. So therefore, your life is different from mine. But we can do this without screaming and yelling at each other. You're not the enemy.
Yep. And you're not the enemy. You're right. All right. Well, thank you for having me on again. I appreciate you.
Oh, thank you so much. This is great. This is absolutely great. Sorry for any viewers that were hoping we'd scream and cuss at each other, but no,
not gonna happen. We may disagree, but that's not gonna happen. And you can disagree in the comments when you get ready.
Listen, please do.
Please do. Absolutely. I'm excited for this. And I can't wait for the next show. So, David, go ahead and lead us out so we can go home.
Thank you for spending some time listening to us talk about things that are important to us, and we hope that are important to you, especially since all of these things can affect all of our lives. I hope you have a wonderful and blessed week, and we will see you again next Saturday.
On Balance.
On Balanced.